All right, recent years have given us an embarrassment of riches in terms of impressive new prog artists showing up on the scene. The last couple of years alone have given us Aukrust, No Spoon, The Anchorette, Temic, and Triton Project, and that's just to name a few. So I would assert that we have a new one to add to the list in the name of one Jacob Roberge, whose latest album, The Passing, has received high praise and accolades across the board for its combination of melodic prog and grand theatrics and hard rock edge. Now, Jacob joined me for a conversation about his new success, highlighted his influences, his inspirations, and long-term goals. So, stay tuned for my conversation with Jacob Roberge, coming right up. Thank you so much for joining me today, sir. I'm glad you had the time, and I know you've been busy lately, so I'm glad you could fit me in.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. You've been making some waves a little bit. New guy in the pool, and making a bit of waves and getting a bit of notice. And I guess I got to ask, as if I probably couldn't imagine, how you feeling about all that? What's the response been like so far?
It's been incredible. I really made this album for myself, and I had absolutely no idea if it would reach an audience and what type of audience it would be. Because with what I've done in the past, I had more of a commercial type of audience, so I didn't know how a prog album with a 32-minute epic on it would how they would react to that. And it's been incredible ever since the first review that came out. It's been better than I could have ever expected, so it's really exciting for the future. It's motivating me to already start working on the next ones.
I got to say, I'm always impressed by the audacity of the person who comes out of the gate with a debut album and an epic track on it. 32 minutes is pretty impressive. Once upon a time, like anything more than about 23, 24 was unimaginable. At times, there seems in recent years to be a little bit of an arms race almost in terms of, hey, who can get the longest track on their album?
Totally. Well, I think the fact that we're not limited by vinyl anymore, people have been more open to that.
Yeah. That's true. And I hadn't really given much thought about that because, this day and age, there's also that push in the collector's market to get vinyl. And I have to imagine that this is sometimes complicating that process at the very least, if not preventing it altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's kind of been that way for me because I've been wanting to look into making it into a vinyl, but it's really it's been proven to be a bit more complicated than I thought because it has to be a double LP because of the length of the record, and then the length of the song itself. I need to find a perfect place to cut it to fit it on two sides, and I couldn't really find one that fit perfectly. So vinyl is not a reality right now, but I'm sure we'll get to it sometime in the future.
It's a funny thing when I think about it and how those times have changed. Now, back in the day, if I'm going to date myself a little bit here, as I had a habit of, for the sake of portability, taking my records and copying them onto a nice little Maxell cassette, and usually finding that the typical album would fit on one side of a 90-minute cassette, and I'd put an album on the flip side. On occasion, I might need to delete a song or so, and I would find maybe my least favorite track and take it off of there. And these days, when I see an album come out and it's like 43, 45 minutes, I go, damn, that's kind of short.
I know, right? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was looking at like Rush records at like the end of the 70s and 80s, and they're like 38 minutes, 40 minutes. Like in today's day and age, like an album, a prog album under an hour is almost a rarity.
Yeah, it really is. So it's interesting. As I said, new guy in the pool a little bit. You were, as I went into the album, for me, an unknown quantity. Now, Google a little bit, find out about you, and I understand you've got this whole other gig going on YouTube, where you were doing one-man band covers. Pretty impressive, showing off your multi-instrumentalist chops. And then also you were working on some other stuff. Live music productions, I don't think I quite got a clear picture of what it was. So for those of us out there that don't know what you were doing beforehand, tell us all about your world prior to this album.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been doing a lot of stuff, and I really try to not limit myself to doing one thing. And the first ever gig I ever got was a role in The Sound of Music. We did a production of the musical over here. I did about 40 dates of it, I would say, when I was 14 years old. So that was my first real gig as a singer or musician. And then throughout the years, I did some more musicals, all in the Quebec province. And lately, I've been working a lot as a musical director for different artists. So I basically like do all the charts and take any kinds of decisions as to the set list and arrangements and everything. So that helps me a lot in the world of writing an album as well, because I get more accustomed to different arrangements and everything. So I do a lot of stuff, singer, musicals, and directing, stuff like that.
Yeah. Very nice. Funny thing there, you mentioned The Sound of Music. I literally, for the very, very first time in my life, saw that album within the last about 7 months.
Wow, really?
Yeah, we were planning a trip to Germany that was going to include a day trip to Salzburg, and the girlfriend loves that and asked me to watch it. And I, of course, reminded her I hate musicals. Almost all of them. There may be a few that I've seen here and there that I like, okay, but in general, the minute they start singing, I just tune out. I'm like, yeah, tell me when the story resumes, could you?
Yeah, it's not for everybody. I get it.
Nah. And so we watched it. We watched the whole thing, and it was one of those moments. I compared it to watching Casablanca for the first time, which, I was never one. I tend to go forward more than I go in the past, so I was never one who dug out a whole bunch of old classic movies unless they really, really interested me. And not a drama person, but I thought, yeah, I'm going to watch a few. Watch Casablanca, and every other line in that movie I knew because it had become like the lexicon of America pop culture, just over and over. I'm like, my God, the classic lines in this movie and it's a really good movie. So this one I went, this is like the Casablanca, because I've heard every one of these songs.
Of course, yeah.
Just about in my life in other areas, or at least heard them in passing and was reasonably familiar with them, except the Cuckoo one. I don't want to hear that again. But like that one's gone through the middle. I looked at it, I said, what the hell is happening? What's going on here? But anyway, but no, that's very cool. I guess, yeah, in a certain sense, when you're doing a large concept album kind of thing, or at least a large format song, the ability to organize and put things together, and I guess what's the word I'm looking for? But I know novelists kind of do the same thing. They build and every time I want to say the word, I lose it.
Is it like a lexicon with like?
No, it's a simpler word, and I'm old. So words just decide to run away from my brain. But it's a structure. It's a outline. Yay, I got it.
Okay, all right.
Constructing an outline, so you know where the story's going, and you can plan all that out. So it sounds like those skills transfer a bit. Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of similarities in the styles of writing. If they're kind of the same, actually. Well, in the case of my album, a certain emotion might have a particular theme that every time I revisit that emotion, that theme comes back. And sometimes it's musicals. In musicals, it's related to a certain character or stuff like that. So it's very similar, just like film score, I would say.
Yeah, like almost like an operetta or something like that, I guess, with the recurring themes that relate to a character, or, as you said, an emotion. That's a very cool idea. And it makes me now wonder, I'm like, how many times did I miss that happening that was there because it was, just subtle and my brain is still absorbing all of the album, along with a whole bunch of other albums this year.
There's a lot this year. It's kind of crazy.
It's amazing. So, okay. So, number one, as you reminded, you're Canadian, Quebecois specifically, if that's the correct term, if my memory is serving
absolutely.
there. Then didn't recall at the moment I probably should have started with Bonsoir. But tell us a little bit about your influences. I'm pretty certain you did list them in a bio a little bit, but I'm very curious how all that relates together and which ones you think stand out or most prominent for you.
I would say there's two that definitely stand out for me. They're my two favorite artists. They've been for a couple of years now. First one is Steven Wilson. I absolutely love all his arranging, his lyrics, his instrumentation. I think he's really, really great. He has very interesting chord choices, which I always seek out. So I really, really love him. And on the other side of the spectrum is everything with Neil Morse. I really, really love what he does. He's more in the symphonic side of it, and I have a lot of film score influences as well in my music, so I feel like they fit a lot in what he does, and he's all about themes and themes coming back and everything, and I love that. So they're definitely my top two. But when I started writing this record, I almost didn't know any prog at all. I was 16 or 17 when I started writing it, and I just had the idea for a concept song about the 5 stages of grief. That was the first idea, but I was in a rock band. I was doing Led Zeppelin and AC/DC with my friends, and that kind of made me seek out bands like Rush and Pink Floyd. They were the two that I started listening to, and then I went into Genesis and Steven Wilson a bit later. So I started the prog song without really knowing any prog at all.
That's fascinating. That is because I never would have guessed that idea that you started this epic concept piece without necessarily being a fan of prog to begin with. And gee, I mean, how good can you be feeling to know that in the same year that your two biggest heroes have also released albums? I think my perception has been that overall yours is perhaps getting the higher ratings on average.
I know it's insane. It's really crazy. I'm always looking forward to a new Steven Wilson album. I mean, Neil Morse as well, but he releases like 3 a year. So
yeah, I think since we started this conversation, he released another one.
Yeah, he probably did. Yeah, but yeah, it's absolutely crazy to me. Like I when doing this album, I was trying to do the best I can to maybe be in this conversation, and the fact that a lot of people are saying that the album is one of the best of the year, like with everything that's come out, is incredible.
Yeah, quite the accomplishment. You have outshone the teachers. So the curious thing I have, and especially in listening to the album, there's a lot, to me, very personal stuff on here. And I know I had pondered in the course of my review as to exactly how much of that was lived experience versus perhaps observed experience. The fact that you were pondering an album on the 5 stages of grief, going as far back as being a 16-year-old, really puts that kind of thought process for you way ahead of the curve on average. Like 16 is typically not an age when people are doing a lot of thinking about mortality and death. For most cases, probably, unless my thought is they've experienced it in some way, shape, or form. So obviously, I'm not going to pry into your personal stuff and ask you to disclose anything that you wouldn't normally do, but I am curious. Especially that song, I guess. Let's focus on that for the moment. How much of that is based on experience?
I would say, at first, it really just was an idea. I actually came across the the concept of the 5 stages of grief while on YouTube. I was watching a certain video that was analyzing one of my favorite games, and
Oh, wow.
they said that the game represented the 5 stages of grief, and I had no idea what that was. But I thought it was a very, very interesting concept, and that making a song where every emotion can be represented in the music and the lyrics, I thought was very interesting. So I started working on that, and at 16, 17 years old, I'd say I wrote about half of this song, lyrics included. So I guess it was more empathy than anything else, because I really didn't have any close ones that had died or anything like that. Throughout the years, I found that, like, for example, my stepbrother died in a car accident 3 years ago, I would say.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry.
Well, thank you. And I found that the lyrics I wrote really reflected the different emotions that I felt through that. So I was kind of surprised by the level of empathy that I had, like, years prior. But at its base, it really just was analytical and I'm trying to find the word. Empathic. Empathy.
Intellectual.
Yeah. So that's how it started out. Yeah.
Wow. Now, that to me, I think, speaks a lot to your ability to, I guess, get into the shoes of others, which is in and of itself a form of empathy. It's also, in many ways, a form of solid writing, because, you know, in a lot of those songs, I felt the emotion there. And for you, what I'm hearing you say is, like, this started out more or less as an intellectual exercise, exploring a concept. And what game were you playing that got into the 5 stages of grief? I need to know that very quickly before I forget to ask it.
Absolutely. It's The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Okay. How has it gone this long? And I've never even heard that stated. That's fascinating. Okay. Anyway, I'll put myself back on track here from that tangent. But the fact that you were able to, I think, so effectively communicate the emotion to the point that, you know, these characters seem to have life beyond the lyrics. So does that extend to the other songs as well?
They're pretty much all stories. The only one that I really had a personal connection with is the first song, The Long Way Home. This song came to me. I was in Quebec, and it was around October, November. It was really cold, and we were at night, and there was a homeless person sitting on a bench, well, sleeping on a bench, and kind of made me think about how they have to find a place to sleep every night, and in this cold weather, maybe they don't know if they're going to wake up tomorrow. So that's the song that I really had a personal connection with. The other ones were more stories that I read. Empty Traces Part 1 talks about World War II. Garden of Souls talks about, World War II as well, soldiers. Petrichor is a very tragic story that I read online that I think is a true story, but I read it once and then I couldn't never find it again, so it kind of disappeared. But it's a mother who loses her 2 children who get abducted and killed, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are more stories. There's really The Long Way Home, who I had a personal connection with, but all the others are more. I'm telling the story of certain people's grieving process or something like that.
That's impressive. And then again, there's a part of me that thinks we have already connected the organizational skills with musical theater to creating an epic prog song. And perhaps some of that also is communicated or transferred over from the idea of characterization and writing from the perspective of individuals other than yourself.
Yeah, I there's probably some of it in there. There's a Steven Wilson album, Hand Cannot Erase, where he puts himself in the shoes of different people as well. Well, The Raven That Refused to Sing as well, when I think about it. And I really like that kind of storytelling, like personal storytelling from another person's perspective.
Right. Now, thinking about it, I'm also wondering, given the subject matter of your album and your stated influence from Steven Wilson, is it typical that you also tend to drift towards songs that are, to use his own words, depressing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It just comes to me naturally. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm writing them by myself, I have more of a introspective view on it and less of a full band, let's rock out type of view. I don't know, because when I was with my band, it was a lot of hard rock. And then when I came to doing music by myself, it was really more ballads. And so maybe this has something to do with it. But yeah, I do like depressing songs, if you want to look at it that way.
Well, it works in a certain sense, too, because especially you talk about spending a lot of time with ballads, that you do seem to have a pretty keen ear for writing very emotionally effective choruses. I mentioned in my review, too, that the chorus from Garden of Souls, there we go, it took me a second there, I almost lost the title. That was honestly, one of the most beautiful choruses I've heard in a while. It really, I think, carries a lot of emotion to it. The vocal harmonies are absolutely gorgeous. So it seems like you've got a keen ear for touching on that kind of stuff, that it's not just the words that communicate the emotion, but the music that you put behind it so well.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That chorus was actually, it was like the fourth or fifth version of the chorus for the song. I had the verses down. I really liked the drum groove that I came up with. And then when it came to the chorus, I really couldn't find anything that worked. So I tried about 3 or 4 choruses that my wife didn't like, or that didn't feel like a chorus. Like one of them that I tried became the bridge at some point, and then I finally ended up finding this last piece of the puzzle, and I was very happy with it. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
very glad
it's like you time traveled to the 70s and took something from Kansas that they didn't use. In many ways, it's just got something to it there. So it's one of those songs that is certainly sitting on the short list so far for my top songs of the year, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't land on the list somewhere, especially high on the list. So,
oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, well done there. These days, I got to wonder down the road. Like I know there's so many. You're not the first person I've spoken to. A lot of them young, but not all of them. Where basically they put out an album that is a full band's worth of work, but they essentially did, if not all the instruments, at least the concept and the composition and the writing themselves. Now I imagine that gives you a great sense of ownership and all that. I also got to wonder, do you have thoughts of touring with this music? What challenges that might present for you?
Well, I absolutely do. I have a band constructed for live shows, because when we released the album, the day after release, we did a launch show in Quebec City. So I found some local musicians who were absolutely awesome, and we did a launch show. William, who's the producer of the album, who also played guitars and bass, he's in the band. Then I have a drummer from Quebec who also plays in Hewis. I don't know if you know the band. It's another
ringing a bell at the
band
moment.
from Quebec, and yeah, a bassist and a multi-instrumentalist. So we have all the pieces, and it's been really great. We have another show coming up in 2 weeks in Quebec City, and then we'll see where it goes. It's kind of interesting because the album where it's like where it's being sold the most right now, and where there's the most activities in Europe. But I'm in Canada, so it's kind of harder. Like it's not really the Quebec crowd that much that's connecting with it the most. So that kind of makes it tricky when trying to decide where to do shows. But yeah, we'll get to it slowly. I got my band already, and they're incredible.
Wonderful. Well, as things go, I think the upside is I'm not surprised if it's mostly doing well in Europe, because they are more prog friendly. And in some ways, given the current circumstances, probably better to travel there anyway.
Probably, yeah.
Safer, easier, better. At least the UK should be easy enough. All Commonwealth, right? That makes things simple, I think, right?
Yeah, and album's doing great in the UK, so who knows?
As it should. You guys, honestly, you and your band would be a great opening act for Marillion on one of their weekends or something like that. That would be awesome. But they have all the prog festivals over there. We've got a couple semi-minor ones down here. We'll see where all that goes coming up. But I can't decide if one is growing or not. And I only discovered long after I had really started to dig into prog that there had been a pretty big one, like an hour from my home, that was happening, but it was before I knew who most of the bands were, and before I'd caught up with things. And that's a longish story in and of itself, but it was one of those things where later I'm going, oh, damn, I missed all those guys?
Which one was that?
It was called Nearfest.
Oh, okay. I don't think I know that one.
Yeah, I don't know the origin of the name. I mean, near, okay, if you're in Pennsylvania, it was, for the most part, on the eastern end of the state. But other than that, I don't know why they called it Nearfest. But I look back and I see things like the Flower Kings and Big Big Train and all these bands that I discovered only afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm like, what'd I miss? So, very cool to hear, though, you might be going out on the road. That would be awesome to see. So, they often say that, once you have 10 years to make your first album, and then if that does well, you've got 3 months to make your next one.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Any pressure on your part at this point in time to be thinking about another album yet?
I mean, yes, but it's more motivation than anything. I don't want to pressure myself into making the album as fast as possible, because I want it to be as great as the first one, if not better. But it has been motivating me to write every day, and that's great, because I often don't have the time for this with all my other projects going on, but right now I'm really focusing on that. Right before I logged in, I was working on a new song, which I think is pretty cool. So,
Awesome.
So right now I have about 2.5 songs written for the album. So I'm not pressuring myself too much, but I'm definitely working on it.
Yeah. Nice. Remind me briefly, because it's something that I'm sure I noted at one point, but I've forgotten. What label was the album released on?
It was by myself.
Okay. I kind of thought that was the case. I wasn't sure. I was going to say, has we started the clock yet to Inside Out giving you a call?
I would love to. I tried to pitch the album to them, and they didn't respond, and I was very sad. But
what?
Yeah, well, I tried to pitch it to a bunch of people, but they must receive albums all the time. But I'm very much hoping for the next one I can get on Inside Out. That would be great.
Okay, yeah, they're usually right on top of the up and coming artists. So I'm aghast that they have not even reached out to as of yet. So
yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't surprised when they didn't answer before I released the album, because I literally didn't release anything before that. So, but now that the first album is released and it's going well, I'm hoping for the next one.
Yeah,
if not them, somebody, maybe another label will.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
I would love that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be very excited for you on that, because that's the label to be on for the big prog artists, and I think at this point in time, you've certainly again made a big splash, and I congratulate you on that. it has been a pretty impressive last couple of years too, with a lot of artists debuting really impressive albums that made waves initially. And the thing I think is funny is how many of them also, like yourself, are Steven Wilson devotees, as well as if they don't mention him, they mention Dream Theater. Those are sort of the two that are there, and it's also another reminder for me that, you know, as much as I want to go, oh, those are the young, you know, modern prog artists. They're not so young anymore. Neither am I, and now they have influenced a generation of people behind them to carry the torch.
Yeah. I mean, they're the big two pretty much right now, like Steven Wilson and Dream Theater. You kind of can't escape them. If you're into prog, you're gonna at least like one of them. I'm more in the Wilson camp, but you know, I love some stuff that Dream Theater did. Absolutely, Octavarium I think is an amazing song.
Yeah, I feel like that one doesn't get quite all the love it deserves.
Absolutely, I think it's their best song by far. But they're a bit too virtuosity for me, just a little bit, and I think this song strikes the perfect balance.
Yeah. Well, as things go with them, when you speak virtuosity, it's almost required to just talk about, okay, you got levels 1 through 5, and then Dream Theater, and just
they're in a league of their own.
It's amazing. It's the only other band I think in the world that made me think of them being a rival for the collection of talent on stage to Rush.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And God, that's a band I miss right now.
Me too. It's not the same Alex Lifeson releasing music without Geddy Lee. It's not the same.
Yeah. It's not the same, but check out my latest review there. Alex had some pretty cool stuff. Oh, did you? Good for you, man. Yeah. It's interesting, and if I can get a hold of him, hello, Alex, PR person, anybody out there, can you answer my email, please? That'd be awesome. Anyway, okay, I digress. This is about you, not about me. So now I'm curious then, too, as you start to work on these new songs, similar direction to what you've done so far, or are you thinking, you know what, I want to try and do something completely different, or something in between, or take you where the muse goes?
I'd say something in between. One thing that I will definitely say is that the songs will be more personal. The way it's going right now is that every song is about something in my life. So they're not going to be stories. They're going to be, stories that happen to me or emotions that I feel, stuff like that. So it'll be way more personal than the first one. And I think it will be, where we're going right now, it will be heavier, it will be proggier, and it'll be weirder as well. From what I've written so far, there's some crazier harmonic choices. There's some heavier riffs, but we'll see how the album pans out. But that's how it's going right now.
That all sounds very encouraging to this particular prog noggin. So very cool. I like that idea. And as you go into that, I guess at this point in time, you know, now that you have done that first album, and I know you had help in producing it, but, you know, obviously so much of that was you. What lessons did you learn on the first go-around that you plan to use to make the second go-around a little smoother, a little easier?
Great question. I'm not really sure how I'm gonna go about it just yet, but I think I want more guest musicians on the album. I played the drums on it, and as far as I did the best I could, I think a proper drummer would do a better job in thinking outside the box of what I can do. And I think that's that's really what was very fun with William's guitar playing. He was coming up with stuff I could never dream of because my hands just can't do what he does. So I think applying that to maybe more guest guitar players and a drummer and maybe a bass player, or maybe I'll play more bass. I don't know. I did play a lot of bass when I was in my other band, and I didn't really play any except for Garden of Souls on this album. So we'll see how it goes. But I would like to have more guest musicians on this one.
Very cool. And you'd be surprised how many you can get, even when you're starting out. You know, I guess a couple of those other, at least one of those other albums I mentioned of somebody's debut, managed to pull in some fairly big names for it. And don't be afraid to reach out. Matter of fact, I think now that Mike Portnoy is permanently back with Dream Theater, at least I'd like to say permanently, knock on wood, I think Darby Todd is taking his place as the guy who must play all the drums.
Darby Todd? I don't think I know him.
He's Devin Townsend. I think he played... who else? I think he played on Charlie Griffith's album.
Okay.
Metallica, the second album. I'm not sure. I've lost track because I've seen his name crop up so many times. And I'm like, all right, here we go. We have the new ubiquitous drummer in town.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I could also reach out to Rick Gillette if ever. I know he does some session work as well. Who knows? Yeah.
He gets around, does a few things here and there. And there's a lot of great drummers out there, really, that, But I named Darby because, like I said, suddenly he's all over the place. But
I'll have to check him out.
Reach out to anybody you want, because I would tell you right now, don't hesitate. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And at this point in time, I think you might have a little pull. Yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah, get a big name or two in there, draw a little extra attention to it. So, but it's very cool to hear that you've got that ambition and you're right back at it while this album is still running hot. It's not even like starting to cool down just yet. And it's very cool for me to see you as a newcomer in all this getting all the accolades. And so congratulations on that. It's impressive work on your part.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have to start right now if I'm going to take 10 years. I'm not going to take 10 years, but if I'm going to take 3, I'd better start right now.
Yeah. Yeah, somewhere in between there, because, heck, Earthside, it took them 8 years between the first and second album, and that second album was absolutely as much a banger, if not more, as the first one, and now I see they'll be on the Cruise to the Edge next year.
Yeah,
so,
I saw
that
awesome.
Could be in your future as well.
I know, I'm trying to tell them, hey, please invite me.
Pick me, I'm right here.
Pick me, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you once again for spending time with me talking about all this. I appreciate you submitting yourself to my interrogation on a Wednesday evening where you maybe could be doing something quieter.
Absolutely not. I was just writing music. I'm very happy to talk about it.
Very cool. Excellent. Well, I look forward to seeing what you are working on next when it comes out. Maybe, hopefully, seeing you do some live stuff. And in the meantime, enjoy basking in the glow of your success. And we'll see what big things come down the road for you.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bonne nuit. All right, once again, the album title is The Passing, and it is available now. I have included a link in the description so you can find it easily. And hopefully, we'll be hearing some news of a tour in the not-too-distant future. I really hope so. Once again, a big thank you to Jacob for his time and for being such a pleasure to chat with. Really, I totally enjoyed it. Sir, I wish you all the best with the new album and any future tour, and I hope to see you soon. Another big thanks to all of you out there for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the interview and the album. If you haven't listened to it yet, what are you doing? Go out and do that now, immediately. It is a not miss this year. And don't forget to do the like and subscribe thing if you could be so kind before you move along to the album. And finally, I leave you with the usual reminder to never fear to deviate from the norm, and as always, keep it proggy.